and welcome to This Is What Came Out of Me, a podcast about anything and everything, but mostly movies, TV, books, podcasts, and YouTube. I'm SierraKiloBravo. Let's get into it. So we've got a few things to go over today. A couple of movies, bit of TV, bit of an update on some books I've been reading. Neat little YouTube video that I found. There's quite a bit there today. For movies, we're going to talk about Apostasy and Thud pilots. Then for books, we're going to talk very briefly about The Spy and the Traitor. YouTube, we're going to talk about a neat little short film I found on there called Paths of Hate. And then for TV, to finish today, we're going to talk about Ainori African Journey Season 1 and Season 1, Volume 3 of The Chef Show. So a little bit, quite a bit on the cards for today. So let's talk about movies. Have you ever watched a movie that put a hand into your chest, grabbed your heart, and threatened to rip it right out of your chest cavity? Well, let me tell you about a movie called Apostasy. It's a film that didn't seem to get a wide release, so it's pretty much flown under the radar as far as I can see. We certainly haven't seen it in theatres or on DVD or anything like that, so I don't think that this is a movie that a lot of people know about. If you're not sure or never heard of it, not sure what it's about, here's the description. A faithful Jehovah's Witness is forced to shun her own sister because of a religious transgression. As the separation draws out, she starts to question the meaning of God's love. Now, the reason that this movie in particular really hit home for me is that I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. And of all of the representations that I've seen on film, big screen, small screen, wherever, any sort of representation that I've seen of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is the most accurate look at what life is like behind the doors of a kingdom hall. That's what they call their churches. Now, the reason for this accuracy is pretty simple. The director, who is also the writer, whose name is Daniel Tajlo, I don't know how to say that. Sorry, Daniel. But he is a former Jehovah's Witness himself. Now, this whole accuracy thing might not mean too much to the average viewer, but this attention to detail is something that's really important. This is because often when Jehovah's Witnesses are shown in TV and movies, the inaccuracies of those portrayals are used by the witnesses to say, oh, it's all fake news and propaganda against us. They have a victim mentality, and that leads to them pointing to anything and everything that could be seen as a lie or something to make them look bad. And they use that as an excuse to go that to paint themselves as victims of misinformation. This movie, however, nails what it's like to be a witness. And anyone, witness or not, if they're being honest, would have to say that apart from a few small things, which could quite possibly be explained away by regional differences, this very accurately recreates things very, very well of what life is like to be, life is like as a Jehovah's Witness. And for that reason, it really hit home. There's no way that the witnesses can say that this is fake and rubbish, because it is pretty much completely spot on. What helps with this is that they use all of the right terms. As with most sort of culty religious groups, there's a whole range of terms and words and phrases that are specific to the group. The movie uses all of those terms correctly. They also really capture really well the inner monologue that goes on when you're a witness on a number of different things, whether you're internally praying or whether you're feeling inadequate about others that might seem more spiritual than you. Right down to what I thought was really good is they even capture the cadence of the public talks. There's a couple of speakers, a couple of talks given in the movie, and it was quite eerie listening to them because it was exactly like you would expect to hear on a Sunday in a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. Even other little things too, like how when somebody asks you a question and you can't answer it, rather than saying, oh look, I don't know, you just open a Watchtower publication to provide the answer. Because for Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower, the governing body, they see them as representatives of Jesus and God, and as such are their spokespeople and can do absolutely no wrong and have all of the answers, despite the fact that they change their thoughts on a key doctrine pretty regularly. Anyway, that's a talk for another podcast one day. The movie really shows too quite well what a suppressed and stagnant life it can be as a Jehovah's Witness. The contrast being is that all the while you're telling everyone who will listen how happy you are and how it's the best life ever, but the reality is it can be, as I said, a very suppressed and stagnant life. If you've got friends or family who are Jehovah's Witnesses and you want to know what life is like to be, what it's like to be a witness, then this movie will give you a very good insight. It's very, very well done. On another angle, from a technical aspect, I really liked how in this movie there was hardly any music. And I think this was a specific decision by the creators, because what it gives to the movie is a real subdued tone. There's a real quietness to the whole movie. The actors have to act as a result of this, and the movie benefits a lot from this. They also, again, talking about the technical side of things, they also make great use of close-ups. The camera pulls right in on people's faces many, many times, often taking up 1 or 2/3 of the entire screen. And that just really adds to the claustrophobic feeling of the film. And again, the claustrophobic feeling that you have as a Jehovah's Witness, being closely watched and monitored and judged, as you constantly are. It's all quite suffocating and portrayed very, very well. The end result is that it's a pretty devastating critique of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's done through the eyes of 3 family members going through a crisis. There's a mother and her 2 daughters, and they all take separate paths through this crisis. And the movie looks pretty closely at how their faith impacts their decisions and their separate paths that they take through this crisis. The 3 leading ladies are absolutely brilliant, and they bring a gravitas and a seriousness to the roles, and they communicate very well, often without words, the struggle that it is to be a Jehovah's Witness and when you're quote-unquote in trouble. It's a quiet, subdued, and deliberately slow-paced movie. And it does that really awesome thing of what I call show, don't tell. It treats the audience with a bit of intelligence rather than banging you on the head with, hey, this is the thing that's happening right now and this is how you should feel. It just shows the emotion and the struggle and what's going on with these 3 ladies' lives. It shows them on their faces, it shows them in the scenery, it shows them in that lack of music. And it's really, really good. The end result is that it's quite accessible. I don't think many Jehovah's Witnesses, unfortunately, would watch this, but it would be very accessible to Jehovah's Witnesses. People who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, I think, would really enjoy this because they'll be able to connect to a lot of the parts of the story. But I also think that it's also accessible to non-Jehovah's Witnesses as well. Like I said before, it gives you a very accurate look into what life as a Jehovah's Witness is like. And I think from that point of view, it could indeed be of interest to non-Jehovah's Witnesses. This movie, make no mistake, it is a downer of a movie, but it's done in such a good and powerful way. And if you can track it down, I highly recommend it. We watched it on Canopy, but I've found out since that it's also on Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, so definitely worth a look. So the other movie that I watched this week was the unusually named Thud Pilots. The name attracted me initially, along with a poster of a jet aircraft. Being a bit of an aircraft nerd, that caught my eye. So this caught my eye way back when we first signed up with Amazon Video. During that time, I added a whole bunch of movies and documentaries and things to my watch list, and then promptly, completely forgot about many of the things that I added. So with the current social distancing going on because of our old mate COVID-19, I was at a bit of a loose end last weekend, and I had to trawl through that list, and that's when I came across Thud Pilot, so I loaded it up. Now, this is a documentary. It's very loosely a history of the F-105 Thunder Chief, known as the Thud. Now, the plane is a fighter bomber that played a key part of the air war in the Vietnam War. So the way the documentary unrolls is that it cuts between archival footage from the war and interviews with surviving pilots. And it's a bit of an oddity, to be honest. There's not a lot of context presented at the start of it. They just seem to roll straight into it. And they don't feel like they need to explain much in the first 5 minutes or so. The result of that was it kind of felt like I was watching the second episode of a TV show after missing the first episode. So it was a bit discombobulating going into it for the first 10 or 15 minutes or so. And then tie that in with a voiceover that sounded like it was straight out of the Dukes of Hazzard. And it all felt a little bit off balance. That said, where this shines is in the segments with the stories and the interviews with the pilots. These were by far the best thing about this documentary. I would, to be completely honest, I'd much rather have watched an hour and a half of these guys regaling us with stories of dogfights, crash landings, imprisonment, and having to deal with the ridiculous rules of engagement. I found these so fascinating to listen to, and it was amazing how clearly these guys could still recount the stories. I guess it's a testament to the profound impact that it had on their lives. I think casual viewers will find it pretty hard to get engaged in this. However, if you've got an interest in military history or aviation history, then no doubt I think you'll get something out of this look at a small part of the Vietnam War. So those are the two movies that I've watched in the last week or so, Apostasy and Thud Pilots. Haven't watched any trailers this week. I should probably get back on that. They seem to have all disappeared for the moment because all the movie theatres and film studios are putting things on hold while the COVID-19 virus passes. So maybe we'll have some more trailers to look at next week. But for now, let's talk about books. This is just going to be a brief check-in because this morning I finally finished The Spy and the Traitor, written by Ben Macintyre. So I'm writing the review for that at the moment. So I'll put a standalone video out for that during the week, and then I'll also include that review in the podcast next week. But the short version is, this book was amazing. I literally read the last third of it all in one sitting this morning. It's just so good, man. The fact that it's a true story as well just really puts this on a whole nother level. What a fascinating and incredible story about one guy who had an enormous impact on our modern day history. It's pretty interesting stuff. So looking forward to talking about that in a bit more depth in the coming few days. So other books I'm reading at the moment, as you know from the last couple of podcasts, 12 Years a Slave, still going through that. Now I've finished The Spy and the Traitor. I should be able to churn through 12 Years a Slave a little bit faster. And for a fiction book, I'm going to start reading The Alchemist's Secret this week. This is book one of the Ben Hope series, a series that I started and got halfway through and then couldn't find any new books in the series for quite a while in any bookshops, so that kind of faded out. So I'm starting again. I've located the rest of the series now, so I'm going to make a start on that. So that's all for books this week. Now let's have a talk about YouTube. So when I was scrolling through Canopy, which is a new online streaming service that I've found, I came across this little 10-minute short film called Paths of Hate. Now, the catch with Canopy is you can only watch 5 movies a month, so I didn't want to use up one of those with a 10-minute film. So I chucked Paths of Hate short film into the YouTube search, and what do you know, the entire 11-minute short animated film is on there in its entirety. So what is this about? Well, it's a very cool little short animated film. As I said, it's got this comic book style, which I just loved. It drew me in immediately just from the art style alone. And what it is, there's no words, there's no script or story or anything. It is simply a comic book style animated version of a dogfight between a Spitfire and a Messerschmitt ME 109. There's no words, there's no real story. It's just really cool art and music for 11 minutes. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. Within seconds, I was pulled right into this, and I absolutely was enthralled by it. It's, as I said, it's only 11 minutes long. It's totally worth a look. It's really, really well done, and I recommend you check it out. So, as I said before, just put in Paths of Hate short film into YouTube, and it will no doubt come up. It's very impressive stuff. It impresses me when, in a very short space of time, a creator can tell you a story, can pull you in almost immediately, and then hold you there and have you enthralled for that short period of time. So very good stuff, very impressive. All right, so to finish up this week, let's talk about TV. So I mentioned last week that we had watched Ainori Asian Journey Seasons 1 and 2, and that we were just moving into the Ainori African Journey Season 1, and we've now finished that. And it was quite an interesting show. This one carries on in much the same way as the Asian Journey. In this case, obviously, they're traveling across Africa. There's only one season available on Netflix, so I'm not sure if there are actually any more out there in the big wide world that might be coming eventually. There's 22 episodes, and in summary, or in a short summary, I would say that this is so much better than the Asian Journey. Man, in the Asian Journey, there was that one participant who kind of took over proceedings, whereas with the African Journey, it's much more balanced, and as a result, you get a much better chance to get to know all the different members and participants, and you get caught up in it. Once again, we found ourselves watching episode after episode. We got sucked in, and we found ourselves cheering for certain people. We were stoked when things worked out, and we shouted at our TV when things didn't go as we wanted. It's one of those ridiculous shows that somehow grabs your brain and pulls you in, and we absolutely enjoyed this. It does, given that it's going across Africa and they go to places like Rwanda, it does go into some quite dark places at times on the educational front, because they take quite a bit of time actually to explain and explore the history of the countries that they go to. So at times when they're talking about the genocide in Rwanda, it was actually pretty moving stuff, pretty unusual to see in the depths of a light reality love dating show. Like I said with the Asian Journey, this show absolutely won't be for everyone, as it's basically Big Brother meets the dating game on wheels. But if you're interested in checking out something that's a little bit different to the things that you usually watch, and you're into some good, clean fun, then I reckon you should give this a go. It's a pretty cool show. So that is Ainori African Journey Season 1, which is on Netflix. And I would probably recommend that you watch that instead of the Asian Journey, because it's much, much better than the initial season. So the other TV show that I finished this week was The Chef Show seasons. Now this is Season 1, Volume 3. So I don't know why it's not just Season 3. I'm not quite sure how they're doing the numbering on this one. But this is one of my favorite food-related discoveries on Netflix, The Chef Show. It's hosted by Jon Favreau and Roy Choi. And it's just a delight to watch. Volume 3 carries on in the same chilled out approach, the complete lack of method explanation and a bunch of people hanging out and cooking stuff style of the first two volumes. It is just so great. Roy Choi, as he did in the first couple of volumes, he's the guide to the culinary side of things, and Favreau is the eager student. He eagerly takes in all that Choi and the various other chefs that they meet telling him. And they're just such a really good pairing, these two. And to be honest, they're such a good pairing that I could probably listen to them talking about paint drying and be completely entertained the whole time. I get a real kick out of watching these two mates do what they love while talking about anything and everything. It's just like Ainori. It's just good, clean fun. In fact, this season alone is worth it just for the lobster roll and homemade chips alone. That episode just made my mouth water. I highly recommend this. It's the kind of show that'll make you hungry, it'll make you want to hang out with your mates, and it might even make you want to go and cook something up. It's real good stuff. So also on the go for TV at the moment, as I mentioned last week, the new season of The Kingdom has arrived on Netflix. That's season 2. It's a Korean zombie drama. It's what I like to call a Korean Game of Thrones. So we're 2 or 3 episodes into that and loving it. So should have a report on that one next week. And still making our way through the Thin Blue Line seasons 1 and 2. And the IT Crowd seasons 1 to 5. We're up to season 3 of that now. So making our way through that nice and fast. So that's all. That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. A nice chance to catch up and talk about things that have come across our eyeballs in the last week or so. If you've watched it or read anything that I've talked about today, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Always keen to get a dialogue going because I love talking about stuff like TV, movies, books, YouTube, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. So please leave me a comment and I'll be happy to keep that conversation going. Until next time, I'm SierraKiloBravo and this is what came out of me.